Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya yato anvayaditaratascha artheshu abhigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hrudaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yatsuraya Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Swena Sada Nirastakuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukad Amrita Drava Sanyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. We now enter the 21st chapter of the 9th Skandha of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are in the middle of the Lunar Dynasty, the Chandra Vamsham, also called Soma Vamsham, being described by Shuka Brahmam. It started with King Pururava, it came to King Yayati, and then from him his son Puru, and then it came down to Dushyanta and Shakuntala. We saw the story of them last chapter, and then their son Bharata, who was an unparalleled king. And we in fact see that in every yuga there is a great Bharata who has ruled. In the first yuga called Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga, there was the story of Jada Bharata Visa, who was Bharata, the great emperor, son of Rishabha, who renounced, engaged in austerities, got attached to a deer, and thereby came back and then eventually became Jada Bharata. So he was a great emperor. Then in Treta Yuga, there was the brother of Ram. We saw the story of Ramayana and the great brother of Ram, Bharata, who is an embodiment of renunciation. And now in Dwapara Yuga, which is this description where we are, which eventually leads to the avatar of Bhagavan Krishna. In Dwapara Yuga, we see the story of Bharata, who is the son of Dushyanta. So in every yuga, there is a Bharata, and that is why the land is called Bharat. So now we continue with the 21st chapter. Shuka Brahmam says, the son of Bharata is Bharadwaja. We already saw that Bharadwaja was given as a baby to Bharata by the Maruts because he didn't have a son of his own. So Bharadwaja then had 5 sons, and one of them is Nara, who had a son called Sankriti, and he had 2 sons, and the second son is called Rantideva. So the story of Rantideva is very special, and that is being narrated because he was a great devotee, a man of equanimity and equal vision. So it is said that Rantideva always did not mind even going hungry, but gave away everything he had. So he had this vision of equality, seeing everyone as Bhagavan's energy, and in everyone's heart the presence of Bhagavan. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So Krishna says, I am in the hearts of everyone, and from me comes everything for them. So the energy of the Supreme Being called Prakriti is what brings forth all beings, and therefore everyone is the energy of Supreme Being, and in their heart the presence of the Supreme Being. So Rantideva had this clear vision, and therefore he did not mind even going without food, but he would always give away whatever he had. And because of that, he in fact, once it is said, he gave away everything. He subsisted on whatever was obtained, but then when anyone came asking for anything, even if he felt hungry, he gave it away. And because of that, he was rendered completely destitute. He had no provision even for the next day. And therefore, he was left to great hunger and thirst. And it was in this state that he spent 48 days. It is said that for 48 days, he was in great hunger because he had given away everything he got. And then finally, on the 49th day, it is said that by chance, he got a opulent meal. So he got a beautiful prasad, which is rice cooked in milk and sugar and with ghee, a very rich, nice food along with water. So he was about to partake of it, having been fasting for 48 days. He was about to partake of it, but it is said that when he was just about to partake of this food, someone came to his door as a Brahmana. So when the Brahmana came, immediately this Rantideva gave a portion of the food to this Brahmana because he is a guest. So the guest is called Atithi, and it is said Atithi Devo Bhava. When a guest comes to the door unannounced, So the word Atithi literally means one who comes unannounced. Tithi means date. Atithi means coming without any prior date or any prior arrangement. So when the guest comes, he is called as the embodiment of God. So Atithi Devo Bhava, it is said, because everyone who comes to our door is the energy of the Supreme Being. So it is said here, Atithi Brahmanaha Kale Bhoktu Kamasya Cha Agamat. When he was about to eat, this Atithi, this guest in the form of a Brahmana came. So Rantideva saw only Supreme Being Hari in the hearts of all. So it is said, Harim Sarvatra Sampashyan Sa Bhuktva Prayayav Dvijah. So he saw Hari, the Supreme Being, in the heart of the Brahmana who had come, and therefore he gave him a share of the food. Then, after that, he was about to eat the food, whatever was left, when another stranger came. And this time, the stranger who came was a worker. And when this worker came, again he saw only Hari there. It said, Vibhaktam Vyabhajat Tasmai Vrishalaya Harim Smaran. So again, when this worker came, so first a learned Brahmana, a great scholar, sagely being came, he saw the presence of Bhagavan in him and gave him some food, whatever he had gotten just now, after not eating for 48 days. Then this worker came, and to him also he did the same because he saw Hari in him, Bhagavan in him, and therefore he gave him a share of the food. And then, as he was about to eat what was left, now a third stranger came, and it is said that he came surrounded by dogs. And so he is called as Chandala, the one who takes care of dogs, and one who sometimes they are even known to eat the meat of dogs. So when this fellow came, he said, Please give me some food. I am hungry, and my dogs are also hungry. So this Rantideva, whatever food was left, he gave it to this Chandala, this person who came, who is taking care of dogs, but also one who is prone to eating dog meat. So this person was given the remaining food. So whatever food he had, first he gave it to the Brahmana, the sagely person. Next he gave it to the worker, and third now he gave it to this dog meat eating person. So he was done with all the food. So now he had just a little bit of water, and he thought at least he will quench his thirst with the water. And when he was about to drink the water, again one more person came and said, Can you please give me some water? So hearing that pitiful request, this Rantideva was moved, and with great pity he spoke the following words. He was happy to give the water to him, and then he spoke the most moving words. So, having given away all the food and even the water he had, instead of feeling any sense of remorse, he was only happy. He said, I do not seek from the Lord any yogic powers. I do not even seek liberation, beatitude. I only want to take on the suffering of all embodied beings so that they may all be relieved of misery. He has such compassion, Rantideva. He says, न कामये अहम गतिम ईश्वरात् परामष्टिर्धिर्युक्ताम् अपुनर्भवं वा आर्तिं प्रपद्ये अखिल देह भाजाम अंतस्थितो येन भवन्ति अदुक्खाः. He says, I want everyone to be free of misery, and therefore I do not need anything else. I do not need yogic powers. I do not want to even escape rebirth. I would rather come again and again to this realm and relieve the suffering of others by taking on that suffering myself. And therefore, he said, I am feeling so energized. So, having given the water away, after having given all the food away, after having eaten nothing for 48 days, and now seeing food and not even able to touch it, but giving it all away, because of his spirit of compassion and love, he says, I feel so energized. The exhaustion I felt due to hunger, thirst, the weariness of my limbs, the low spirit, the grief, the despondency, everything has disappeared because I have been able to give it away. So he was feeling so low in the morning when he had fasted for 48 days, and it is said that he felt great exhaustion, tiredness, despondency, and grief, and he was so eager when he got that food. But then he got a higher taste. So this is what Rantideva is demonstrating, that rather than partaking of that food which would have tasted like nectar after having fasted for 48 days, he tasted even higher nectar by giving away that food and water to those who were suffering and who were really needy. And so he said, it is a miracle that whatever I felt in the morning, the tiredness, the exhaustion, the grief, all of that has gone away, and I feel energized, though I've given away everything. And therefore, I only ask this feeling to be there. I would rather take on the misery of everyone, even if I have to come again and again. When he expressed this beautiful sentiment with great mercy and great compassion, then instantly it was revealed to him that the three people who came were in fact Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So, first a Brahmana sage came, then a worker came, and then a Chandala came. So, they were revealed to be Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, who are the Trimurti, as it is said, the deities responsible for creation, sustenance, and dissolution, and all of this appeared due to Vishnu Maya. So, Vishnu, the Supreme Being, his Maya, it is said, brought forth all of them, and therefore he was revealed this divine vision that, hey Rantideva, you have done such a noble act, we came to test you, and you really passed in flying colors, because the three beings who came were nothing but the three great deities, the Trimurti. And when he saw this, he was so pleased, and yet he was also free of anything to ask. It is said very beautifully that he greets them with love, he offers his obeisances, but without any attachment whatsoever in him, without any craving. He simply fixed his mind on the Supreme Being Vasudeva. It says here, Savai Tebhyo Namaskritya Nissango Vegata Sprihaha Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhaktya Chakre Manaf Param. So his mind was only fixed on Vasudeva, the Supreme Being, who pervades the whole universe and from whom comes forth the powers of creation, sustenance, and dissolution, which appears as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And therefore, the source of all, the Supreme Being Vasudeva, is his only object of devotion, and therefore he had nothing to ask even the great deities, the Trimurti. He was simply having his mind fixed on the Supreme Being, and therefore it is said that he had no effect of Maya in him. Maya, which normally deludes everyone, it simply dissolved in him, and he realized the Spirit, the Spirit, the Supreme Being, and he was in this state of highest bliss and peace, and he had no desire to ask anything whatsoever. It says here, Ishvara Lambanam Chittam Kurvato Ananya Radhasaha Maya Gunamayi Rajan Swapnavat Pratyaliyat. So, just as a dream dissolves when one wakes up, the whole dream of Maya, the sense of separation as me and mine, and the possessiveness and covetousness, all of this simply disappeared in him completely without a trace. And even though he never claimed anything, he was situated in the highest wisdom, in the highest bliss, and that is why, even though he hadn't eaten for 48 days and he gave away everything, he was feeling such energy, such intense bliss instead of exhaustion after giving away the food he got after 48 days. So, this is why when the higher energy is invoked, when something much greater than the material energy is invoked, when grace comes forth, then it sustains life in ways that thought cannot understand. And therefore, he defied all normal laws by being able to be filled with joy even though he had eaten nothing. And he also demonstrated his complete lack of any desire whatsoever by only offering his obeisances to the Trimurti, but fixing his mind only on the Supreme Being. And therefore it is said that Rantideva's glory was celebrated everywhere, and anyone who came to see him, anyone who was associated with him, was also liberated by his holy association. Such is the glory of Rantideva. So there is a verse in Bhagavad Gita which exactly maps to what Rantideva did. In the 5th chapter, 18th verse, Krishna says, "The one who sees the learned, sagely humble Brahmana, the elephant, the dog, and even the one who eats the dogs, the Chandala, the one who sees everyone as alike, one who sees everyone as the expression of the same Supreme Being, and one who sees the Supreme Being in every one of them, he is the true Jnani." Krishna says, "Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Panditaha Samadarshanaha." So, anyone who is able to have this sameness of vision, he sees a cow, he sees an elephant, he sees a dog, he sees a great learned Brahmana, a sage, he sees someone who is completely in darkness of ignorance. Whoever he sees the same in all of them. He sees the presence of the Supreme Being in all of them. He has the right vision because all that is there is only the Supreme Being. The physical manifest universe made of beings is the energy of the Supreme Being, and the essence of everyone and everything, the heart of every being, is the Supreme Being himself. And therefore, when one has this clear vision that present in the heart of all is the Supreme Being as pure awareness, Paramatma, and their very outer expression as body, mind, senses is the energy, the material energy, Prakriti of the same Supreme Being. And therefore, all there is only the Supreme Being and his energy, Purusha and Prakriti. When one sees this, he has got Samadarshana, and that is called as a Pandita. And such a being is the highest yogi, is the highest jnani, is the highest bhakta. So Krishna also says in the 6th chapter, "Yoginam api sarvesham madgater antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha." The one, and he is the greatest yogi because he sees me in everything and everything in me. And so Rantideva exhibited this great quality, and this is a very moving, wonderful story in Bhagavatam. Rantideva is not as famous as many other devotees, but his story is equally moving and is so glorious. And we see the spirit of giving in him, and not just giving, but the compassion that underlies the giving, where he wants to take on the suffering of others. Rather than desiring to be liberated, rather than desiring to realize the self, rather than desiring enlightenment or whatever one calls it, he simply has the attitude that I want to relieve the suffering of everyone. And when one does that, automatically that is the highest state of enlightenment. When the desire for enlightenment is itself completely absent, and when there is only total compassion, that is the highest state of true enlightenment, which Rantideva teaches us. So Bhagavatam, that's why again and again emphasizes that the highest Bhagavata dharma is to transcend the desire for liberation. When one transcends the desire for liberation and sees Bhagavan as everywhere and everything, then there is nobody to be even liberated. There is only his presence in the heart and his energy that animates everything. And therefore, the only response is unconditional love and compassion, which is what Rantideva demonstrates. Now, after that, Shuka Brahma Rishi continues with the lineage. So, the sons of Bharadwaja, Nara had the son Rantideva, as we saw, his lineage. There was other sons, and their lineage is also given: Brihat Kshatra, Jaya, Mahavirya, and Garga. The sons of Garga became Gargya, and from them, in fact, came a line of Brahmanas. And similarly, the son Mahavirya, in his line also came Brahmana. So here, in fact, Shuka Brahma Rishi says, both through the sons of Garga and the sons of Mahavirya came Brahmanas, even though they are in the line of Kshatriya. So again, we see that over and over, Bhagavatam gives so many examples of how birth is not determining one's life, and they are able to attain the state of Brahmanhood even though born as Kshatriyas. And we have seen these examples multiple times here. In fact, it says that many Brahmanas came out of the line of Gargya and Mahavirya. And similarly, we also have examples of many who became Kshatriya being born to Brahmanas and so on. So this idea of Varna being based only on Guna and Karma is emphasized again and again by Bhagavatam, and this is exactly what Krishna says in Gita. He says, Chaturvarnyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagach. It is not based on birth, but based on Guna and Karma. Birth can maybe give some inclinations, but it really is left to the qualities and the activities that one manifests that really determines one's Varna. And therefore, everyone can recognize what one's inclinations are, what one is drawn towards, and no matter what it is, whether it's the Brahminical spirit of teaching wisdom, or Kshatriya spirit of being a warrior, or a Vaishya spirit of being a businessman, or the Shudra spirit of being a hardworking, service offering person, any of this can be dovetailed to surrender to Supreme Being by offering it as what one can offer, because ultimately everything is the energy of the Supreme Being, and therefore there is no gradation there. As long as one recognizes what one's inclination is and what one's qualities are, one can dovetail the activities accordingly and offer it as a offering to the Supreme Being from whom everything comes forth, without any false sense of doership, without any attachment to results. And that is what is demonstrated again and again here. So now the lineage continues. There was one son called Hasti born to Brihat Kshatra, and this Hasti is famous because of him Hastinapura was built, which is the eventually the capital and the famous city where the Mahabharata story takes place predominantly. Hastinapura is the present day Meerut, close to the banks of Ganga. And Hasti, the one who built Hastinapura, he had many sons. One of them is Ajamedha. And Ajamedha is a very famous son because his lineage is what brings forth the Pandavas. So Ajamedha had many sons. One of them, it is said, leads to a son called Brahmadatta, who became a great yogi. His son Vishwaksena also became a yogi. And then the another lineage is from his another wife. He had a son through which he had, there was a king called Bharmyashva who had 5 sons, and these 5 sons were together called as the Panchalas, because this king Bharmyashva said, these 5 sons can protect my 5 lands, and therefore he referred to them as Panchalas, and that is the lineage in which Panchali, which is whose Draupadi comes, which will come in the next chapter. But for now, Panchala is the lineage of Ajamedha, and then through another son of Ajamedha, it is said that 2 beings, one boy and girl called Kripa and Kripi, come, and Kripa becomes Kripacharya, the one of the teachers of the Kauravas, who also plays a key role in Mahabharata war, fighting for the Kauravas. And then Ajamedha had another son called Riksha, and we will see his lineage, how that leads to the Pandavas. So for now, we have seen the lineage of Ajamedha, how it leads to many famous beings, and some of them are listed here. And with the mention of Kripa and Kripi as the last of this, in this chapter, we end this chapter. In the next chapter, we will complete the lineage of how the other son of Ajamedha leads to Shantanu, Bhishma, and then the Pandavas. So we end this chapter now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.